Pulsex, the DEX for Pulse Chain, is going to be launching very soon. And if I were to ask you a question, do you think that Pulsex could have more trading volume than Uniswap V3 for Ethereum? The V3 is the largest DEX on Ethereum. They have over, on average, $1 billion a day of transactional volume. Could Pulsex get there in a day? I'm sorry, in a year to actually have more volume than Uniswap V3? I'm going to paint you a very interesting picture where we take a look at some research here on the effects of transaction costs on trading volumes from the legacy world. And then we're also going to take a look at some costs for GWEI, or the gas fees for Ethereum. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam. For those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Now, if you're returning, you haven't already subscribed, what is going on, bro? You should definitely subscribe and press the bell notification for everybody here. If you want to support the channel, there's some links down below in the description. Let's get into the video. Now, when I think about Uniswap, I see it as being the largest and most successful DEX available. And you're like, how could something brand new like Pulsex come to beat Uniswap in trading volume? And I was thinking about it because I think Pulsex also, which is going to be the premier like DEX for Pulse, because there's going to be other DEXs, but this is going to be the premier one. Well, that's the idea with this. I was thinking about Pulsex, and I think that Pulsex has, for the first time, potential to be larger than the layer 1 Pulse chain, right? Because you have Pulse chain is similar to like Ethereum, right? And Ethereum is larger than anything else that's built onto it. Well, I think that Pulsex, which is built on Pulse chain, similar to say how Hex is built on Ethereum or any other ERC20 is built on Ethereum, I think that Pulsex could actually be larger than Pulse for the first time in the history of crypto. And for multiple different reasons, one of them is what I'm about to show you, but there's many other reasons. I've done several other videos on that. And as I was thinking about that, that's what led me into this. So this paper is actually from my alma mater, the University of Rochester, where I got my MBA. The effects of transaction costs on stock prices and trading volume. So these two fellows, are actually three people and a lady, two fellows and a girl. They looked at the transition from NASDAQ to NYSE and Amex, right? Different stock exchanges here in the United States. And companies will switch. Their ticker will be listed on one, and then they'll end up switching for various reasons onto other ones and whatnot. Or sometimes they get dropped, right? When this happens, there's different fees involved. So it gave them a good data set to take a look at what happens to volume as the transactions, the transaction costs, like what happens. And what they conclude is that we find that higher transaction costs, I'm just reading, this is actually just from the abstract, we find that the higher transaction costs significantly reduce trading costs. Let's go over here for a second. Uniswap. What are their fees? very similar, basically the same as Pulse, right? X. 0.3% versus 0.29, very trivial of a difference. But what about Pulse and Ethereum? Well, when you look at Pulse, sub 1 penny transactions, so virtually free, a fraction of the penny to do a transaction on Pulse. Like to even buy something with a credit card at the store, it costs even for $5, it costs the merchant more than a penny to do that transaction. You know, it's like 3, depending on several factors, but around 3%. Right, so 15 cents, I think that is, or something like that. 15 cents for Visa or MasterCard to buy a $5 cup of coffee. Right? Well, on Pulse, it's going to be a fraction of a penny. It's going to be a fraction of a penny, virtually free. Now imagine having a penny's worth of Pulse that you could do 100 transactions with, right? So when we look at Uniswap, we see something different because Ethereum's prices have been going up. We had a spike in their, the fees, the GWEI, the gas with Ethereum. Over the last couple of years, the costs have just gone up tremendously, and they just sit up higher on average. So if you were to say, look at the average gas prices for Ethereum, and we're going to do that in a moment, and then you look at the costs to trade stock over time, and you take into consideration this finding here, which we would all presume, like, obviously, there's setting up to be something pretty monumental that could happen. So let's take a look at the next piece of it. When we look at the stock trading, as we just mentioned, this is from researchaffiliates.com. The estimated cost to trade the average daily volume of a U.S. equity security from 1960 to 2016, right? And as you get to see, it is just down and to the right, meaning the transaction cost, I remember 10, 20 years ago, right? It was like $15, $15 to buy stock. It was like $15 to buy stock, right? Now you can go through and you can do it on Robinhood or Cash App for free. And I'm sure that there's, Webull also does it, and then I'm sure a lot of like the legacy players in legacy finance are also doing that, like E-Trade or Ameritrade and Schwab and all that stuff. But you get to see transaction costs just continue to come down. Now, we're going to be going through that when Pulse comes out, and we have a shift from Ethereum to Pulse, right? Because this is how people are going to interact with Pulse, is through Pulsex, right? This is going to be basically the interface that everybody's going to be seeing and thinking about, right? Because everybody's going to trade or swap their PRC20s on here. Now, when we look at the costs for GWEI over time, as we looked at a second ago, this is from ycharts.com. The Ethereum average gas price, this is over the last 10 years here. You get to see, held pretty constant, and this is, so the average here says is 12, 15, I think this is, let's just say, oh, this is GWEI, so this is not the exact price, this is the GWEI, which is a good question on explaining that. You can let me know in the comments below on how GWEI translates to the actual price, because I haven't dove into that to fully understand it yet. But as you get to see here, around the beginning of 2020, you know what else happened in 2020? The government said F you, right? Globally and collectively, the governments around the world were like, oh, fuck you, bro. Stay indoors, put a diaper on your face, and shut the fuck up. And if you decide to talk, we're going to censor you, right? And if you live in Canada and you supported freedom, 5-6 months ago, and you bought donuts or gas for the truckers, they're going to steal your money, right? So we get to see that when the government starts to get involved and put forth all their tyrannical garbage that they put forth, there's an increase in the interest in crypto tremendously, right? This caused the GWEI to go up drastically, and you get to see that it did not go back down. This, if you pull up, I can pull up one more chart to show you this. Is Google Trends. Google is the largest search engine in the world, followed only by number 2, which is YouTube. So if we take a look at crypto over the last 5 years, so we're looking at Google, right? Over the last 5 years, worldwide, right, because they're the largest search engine in the world. And we see here, we don't see exactly the same trend in terms of GWEI prices, but this is interesting. The GWEI prices started just when the government started to be like, F your shit, right? Even on the day of, probably. This is March 12th or something. I don't remember when it was. But you get to see, it just was like, hey, we're never going back down to that low level again. And you get to see a giant spike in search volume starting at the end of 2020 for the word crypto, as more people are searching for freedom, more people are searching to get out of the corruption that is most, I'm not going to use the word most, is government globally, right? And you see the same thing on YouTube, the second largest search engine, right? So let's get back into this. Let's start putting all these pieces together. You have something that is going to, say if the average cost is, since I've been looking into crypto, it's been around, and I've got in just recently, right? So I've seen these higher gas prices. I've seen the fees be in the neighborhood of, say, low teens, like maybe say 11 to 14, and I've seen them up around 50 bucks. I've seen them as high as 10,000, right? So if we just say an average of 20 bucks, which I paid several times, 20 bucks to do a transaction, very expensive relative to a cup of coffee, right? Well, that's expensive. Well, what happens when you have a drop from, say, $20 down to $2, down to 20 cents, down to 2 cents, down to 20% of a penny? Because that's what we're looking at. What is that? 1,000x reduction in the cost to do a transaction. That's substantial. And what did we learn by this research paper? We find that higher transaction costs significantly reduce trading volume. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting closer to putting all this together. We're going to have a roughly 1,000x decrease in transaction costs. Transaction costs that are higher decreases trading volume. When you have such a large, gargantuan, monumental decrease in the cost to do something, you don't just have 1,000x increase in trading volume. There's a decent chance you're going to have way greater, because now all those arbitrage opportunities, we did a video about that, you can check that out, right? Where to do an arbitrage, maybe it's $75, but what if instead of $75 it was 3/4 of a penny to do? So it's $75 more profit. The market is far more efficient. So you're going to have a lot more people taking advantage of arbitrage opportunities. That's good. That's very good, right? And we've seen this happen in the regular market and the uptick in trading volume in stocks. I wasn't able to actually pull up the data, to actually show you guys, but I was able to find this research paper. So when you put all these things together, 1,000x decrease in the price. The copying of everything that's on Ethereum to Pulse. So even if people don't necessarily support the project to start with, and then they find out that they've got, say, $20,000 on Ethereum, and they look over at the Pulse chain network and they realize that they have $2,000 or $6,000 or $20,000 worth of value over there, they'll be like, oh, that's interesting, even to the point where they just go through and trade it, or maybe they hold it, right? There is going to be a monumental amount of trading volume on Pulsex because of all the things we mentioned. And then when everybody's getting them for free, then they're going to be trading those around, and people who enjoy trading and that shit, the effect when you put all this together is that I see Pulsex trading volume exceeding Uniswap's trading volume. And remember, they're doing like their peak here a couple months ago was what, 12 billion in a day or something like that. I can't get my thing to stay there. Okay, 5 billion in a day, right? They average maybe just over a billion today, or a billion per day. You get to see over the last 24 hours. This is on a Saturday, right? $1 billion worth of transactions. I see that significantly increasing. I think that Pulsex trading volume by the end of year one, right? Because V3 has only been out for 1 year at this point, almost exactly 1 year. It started on May 3rd. Okay, so it's been out for 1 year and 4 days or something, right? I could see Pulsex's trading volume exceed Uniswap within 1 year on average, just due to this. Now, this is going to assume that there's adoption, right, on Pulse. Could this fail? 100%. It's not even released yet. Of course it can fail. I don't think that is the case, but I believe that as more and more people see what is happening, that 2.5% of the population that owns crypto right now, as that goes from 2.5% to 5%, we're going to see a gargantuan uptick in adoption like you've never seen before. Again, look at this. What does this mean when you look at it on YouTube or on Google when somebody's searching word for crypto? If you're watching this, then you probably understand that there's a Grand Canyon of a divide between people who understand crypto and people who don't understand crypto from a knowledge standpoint. And this is closing that gap. People are looking for information. So when Pulsex comes out, I personally believe that and you can clip this in a year from now and let me know how accurate it was. I think Pulsex within 1 year is going to have greater trading volume than Uniswap. So, love to hear what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. And if you enjoy this type of content and you'd like to support in other ways, you can jump over to Twitter. There's a link down below for my Twitter. And another benefit of going over to Twitter is I'm actually having a contest with this guy, Molly, right? He's got 14,000 followers and I have 2,700. If you go over and follow and you retweet something of mine to help me get more attention, what I can do, if I beat him by July 30th of this year, I get 50,000 hex, right? That's about 10 grand, right? So if you go over to Twitter and press follow and you retweet something of mine that you found value in to increase the attention, I would be appreciated. Especially if you found value in this video and you take the time to do that, that would be awesome. There's another icon coming up here for my other YouTube channel around fitness related stuff, similar to this, that shit that a lot of people are not talking about and overlooking that is super unique. I also have a Instagram. You can check it down below for the Instagram. I'm posting it to the stories daily. There's a TikTok down there as well. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.